We're gonna have some fun for a minute. Ask a couple good questions. What's your favorite track to race at?
Probably Bristol. I don't know if you guys have ever been or have y'all been to any races
Yeah,
ever?
I have, yeah.
been to AMS a few times, and I've driven by Bristol. It's just I haven't been into a race there though.
I came to
Gotcha.
Daytona with old Chipper a few times down there in spring training.
Yeah, it's super fun. I mean, it really is. Daytona obviously is a great environment to go to a race, and that's such a big event for NASCAR. But yeah, I would say Bristol. The environment there is just super cool, and I think selfishly for me, I always loved baseball and football and all these other sports, and that's the closest thing we get to it because it's inside of a stadium, and I think that's super neat. So it's just when you show up at Bristol versus other racetracks, it's just like, man, this is different. This has a different feel to it than anywhere else that we go. So I always get excited for that one. When you get to year 8 or 9 or wherever I'm at, it's for a place to still make you feel that way, I think is pretty cool.
That's how I always felt about Wrigley Field, man. Like every time I walked out and stepped out between the
great.
ivy, first year to my 12th year was the same thing, man. It was just awesome.
Gave you chills.
Yeah, that's cool.
What's a favorite race you've ever done?
A favorite race. Man, any of them that you win are always good. NASCAR is the numbers are not on your side from that standpoint, or at least for me. But man, that's so hard. Yes, there have been bigger wins than others. Winning a championship, obviously that day was incredible. But if you just take out those moments, I guess, from a victory standpoint, meaningful races. I mean, the first one, honestly, I mean, I remember that first day. That was my first Daytona 500 was in 2016, and we ended up setting fast time, so we were starting first. And I'm 20 or 20. I think I was 20 at the time, and I'm just walking down pit road, and I'm like, man, I don't know that I belong here. I'm looking at Tony Stewart, and I'm looking at Matt Kenseth and Jimmy Johnson and Casey Kane and all these guys, and I'm just like, holy smokes, what have I got myself into? We're fixing to start the Daytona 500, and I'm racing against my heroes, like guys that I grew up watching, and just to get past that was a pretty wild moment for me, but.
Yeah, and realizing they want to kick your butt in about 15 minutes too, right?
For sure, exactly. It's so, and I'm sure no kid is immune to this, right? And especially nowadays, with as young as kids are coming into baseball and football and whatnot. I mean, you're in your early 20s, right? That's not unheard of. But every kid that makes it in whatever sport they want to do, or whatever, not just in sports. There was someone that you admired along the way. There was someone that you liked and that you looked up to and that you wanted to be like. And if you ever face that person, it's like, how do you turn that off? Right then, right there. It's a hard thing to do, and it takes a little bit of time, to get used to being around those guys. But with a little time, you do, and they become your friends in some ways, but also your enemies and your competitors and others. And I think you learn to respect them, and they learn to respect you, and you also want to go and beat one another just as bad as they do, and it becomes fun.
That leads me right into what I was going to ask. Who are a couple of the drivers that you admire, and why?
Well, obviously, I was biased living where I did growing up, but as I got older, there were other guys that I looked up to quite a lot, and Casey Kane was one of them. He took over for Dad there for Ray Evernham in the early 2000s. So I thought that was a really special time in my dad's life. And I got to spend some time around Casey as I was a kid, and always thought he was, he's such a good dude. And he was such a good dude to me then. So I always thought a lot of him. But really and truly, Tony Stewart was the first guy that I finally manned up enough to say, hey, I like this guy, to Because when you grow up inside, a house of someone else racing, it takes some guts to be like, hey, I think I like this other guy too. Not that you were completely jumping ship, but to actually come out and say that, was difficult. So Tony was really that first one for me. He was such a good guy. He's so good with kids from the standpoint, and it's so funny because I see some of the same ways he's treated Keelan, Kevin Harvick's son, on pit road and around the racetrack. I'm like, man, that's exactly how I remember my childhood being with Tony too. And just some of those little interactions that he took time to, come up and give me a high five before the race or whatever. I always just thought it was really cool and admired that a lot. And he was a racer's racer. I mean, he was a guy that was willing to go race whatever, whenever, all the time, dirt, asphalt, it didn't matter. And being the race fan that I was, I just admired that and thought it was super cool. And even better that he took some time to be really nice to me. So Tony was really that first one. And I got the chance to race against him. My first year in Cup was his final season. So that was a pretty cool moment too.
That's cool.
So trick question here. So one day you have a son. Would you rather him be a Georgia Bulldog, an Atlanta Brave, or a NASCAR driver?
I'd like for him to get on tour. If I had a choice, I'd like for him to get on tour so he could visit some really nice golf courses.
A nice life
over the course of his life. But no, look, I mean, if I ever had a kid, whatever he wants to do. But my mom did want me to play golf, and she jokes about this all the time. She's like, man, I don't know why you didn't listen to me. I told you playing golf is where it was at, and here I go. I'm trying to play golf when I have off time. So anyways, I do love golf too, but whatever the kid wanted to do, obviously I'm not gonna steer him in a different direction. If they have passion about something, that's great.